It was the kind of town you see in postcards. Harmony Creek, Ohio, a place where the cornfields stretched out like a golden sea under the vast Midwestern sky. The year was 1998, a time before everyone carried the world in their pockets. Life felt simpler, slower. Here, front doors were often left unlocked. Neighbors knew each other by name, not just by the cars in their driveways. The town square, with its gazebo and weathered bronze statue of a Civil War soldier, was the heart of the community, the stage for summer festivals and autumn bake sales. It was a place built on trust, on the comforting rhythm of seasons, and the shared belief that nothing truly bad could ever happen here. In the center of this idyllic picture was the Miller family. They lived in a modest two-story house on Elm Street, a home distinguished by its perfectly manicured lawn and the American flag that fluttered proudly from the porch. The father, Officer Frank Miller, was more than just a policeman. He was a pillar of the community. He coached Little League. He directed traffic during the annual Founders Day parade. His wife, Sarah, was a gentle soul, a kindergarten teacher known for her patience and her warm smile, the one who organized potlucks and volunteered at the church. Frank Miller cut an imposing figure, broad-shouldered and tall, with a firm jaw, eyes that seemed to see right through you. On the streets of Harmony Creek, that presence was reassuring. It meant order. It meant safety. People would see his patrol car cruising by and feel a sense of calm wash over them. He was the town's protector, its guardian, a man, a father, a police officer. At the local diner, where he'd take his morning coffee, the whispers were always the same. "There goes Frank. Good man. Straight as an arrow." He was held up as an example to the town's youth. Discipline, integrity, strength. At home, however, that towering presence cast a long and heavy shadow. A shadow that fell squarely on his only son, Alex. The boy was the antithesis of his father. Frank was loud, Alex was quiet. Frank was athletic, Frank was outgoing. Alex was bookish, Alex was introverted. He preferred the hushed aisles of the library to the roaring crowds of a high school football game. To the outside world, this was just a simple case of opposites. A father trying to toughen up his sensitive son. But look closer. The flinch when his father's voice boomed, the eyes fixed on the floor when Frank entered a room. A quiet, simmering tension played out behind the drawn curtains of the Miller home. Frank's relentless campaign: push him into sports, criticize with a drill sergeant's precision, dismiss his love for drawing and writing, urge him toward more manly pursuits. It was a constant, grinding pressure, a silent war of wills in the yard, at the dinner table, a war Alex seemed always to be losing.
"He's just a boy, Frank. Give him time." But her efforts were like trying to hold back the tide.
The first public signs were small, almost imperceptible. At the annual town picnic, Frank berated Alex so fiercely for dropping a fly ball that a hush fell over the crowd. People exchanged uneasy glances, then said, "Frank just wants the best for his boy. He's a tough coach, that's all." They saw passion, not rage, discipline, not cruelty. It was easier that way. It kept the postcard intact. Then came the private observations. Alex's teacher, Martha Gable, noticed a new kind of silence, haunted, watchful. He arrived with dark circles, his focus drifting. Once, a faint, yellowish bruise. When she asked, he shook his head and pulled his sleeve down, murmuring about bumping into a door. She made a note, a knot of concern tightening. But what could she do? This was Frank Miller's son, a respected officer. Who would believe her? Tension became a suffocating presence. Arguments between Frank and Sarah grew more frequent, their voices seeping through the walls. Neighbors heard the roar, not the friendly officer they knew. They turned up their televisions. In a small town, you learn to look the other way, especially with a cop. And what of Frank's dark secret? A secret born of anger and control. The whispers started at the station, short temper on calls, overly aggressive in minor disputes, an unsettling intensity beneath the surface. They called it cop stress. Some knew it was more. A man losing control, tightening his grip on everyone around him. The hero was cracking. The local paper, the Harmony Creek Herald, usually bake sales and high school sports, hinted at something else. Vague, of course. Increased domestic calls without names. a general unease. But everyone knew. Whispers grew louder, carried on the wind. The perfect family on Elm Street became hushed conversation, and in the aisles of the store,
We spoke to a neighbor, an elderly woman named Doris May, who lived across the street. You'd hear him, Frank, shouting. Not like a normal argument. It was a roar, like an animal. And then you'd hear Sarah crying. I'd just turn up my television. What was I supposed to do? Call the police on the police? I was scared. We were all scared of him, I think. We just didn't want to admit it.
At school, Alex's isolation deepened.
He was like a ghost, head down, clutching his books like a shield. I asked if everything was all right at home. He looked at me with old, tired eyes and said, "My dad says what happens at home stays at home."
The system designed to protect him failed, blocked by the very authority it trusted.
We all saw it. Frank was a good cop once. The job gets to you. And he had a mean streak, a bully in blue. The chief tried to talk to him. Frank saw it as weakness. He just got angrier. We knew he was a tyrant at home. We knew. But he was one of us. We protected one of our own.
As October began, the facade of the Millers didn't just crack. It began to crumble in plain sight. The unraveling accelerated, each day a new, disturbing sign. It started with a call to dispatch, a shaky, tearful voice, Sarah Miller, reporting a verbal altercation. Before details, the line went dead. 2 officers were sent to the house on Elm Street. Frank answered, calm, composed, persuasive, and their superior. He called it a silly marital spat. They left without ever speaking to Sarah. Days later, Alex didn't show up for school. The secretary called the house. Frank said Alex had the stomach flu, but Alex's best friend, Kevin, knew something was wrong. Alex had whispered that his dad was losing it. Like so many others, they were hesitant. They told him to stay away, not to stir up trouble. The circle of silence tightened around Alex once more, leaving him utterly alone. The herald tiptoed around a landmine, but the message got through. Trust in the Golden Boy officer began to erode. The night of October 8, 1998, was quiet. A typical autumn evening in Harmony Creek. The house on Elm Street sat under the stars. The sky was clear, studded with stars. A cool breeze rustled the last of the leaves. Inside, the silence felt heavy, suffocating, filled with unspoken threats and years of suppressed fear. Sarah was at a church meeting, a rare escape. Just Frank and Alex at home. Just the father and the son. Dinner had been tense, ending with Frank overturning the table. The argument escalated, from kitchen to upstairs. Frank's furious bellow echoed through the house, insults and threats. He called Alex a failure, weak, a disgrace to the Miller name. Cornered and trembling, Alex retreated to his room. He locked the door, knowing it wouldn't hold. Frank rattled the knob, pounded the wood, and something inside the 13-year-old boy snapped. He knew where his father kept his off-duty firearm, had seen him clean it, tucked in a shoebox at the top of the closet. While his father raged outside his door, Alex slipped in, reached, and took it. The pounding stopped. A new sound. Wood splintering. Frank broke through, face contorted with rage, stepping forward, and the silence of the night was shattered by a single, deafening gunshot. The gunshot that echoed from Elm Street was a cannon blast that blew apart Harmony Creek's peaceful illusion. Within minutes, flashing lights and wailing sirens cut through the night. Neighbors poured out, confusion and horror on their faces. Sarah returned to find her world destroyed. A small figure, wrapped in a blanket, was led from the house by grim-faced officers. His colleagues, his friends. 13-year-old Alex Miller, arrested for the murder of his father, Officer Frank Miller. The first narrative was simple, clean, tragic. A good man, a dedicated officer, murdered in his home by a troubled son. But as the investigation unfolded, a different story emerged, whispered, then debated in public. Testimonies from teachers, snippets from Sarah's interviews, and brave neighbors painted not a hero, but a tyrant. Was Alex a cold-blooded killer, or a victim who finally fought back? The town divided. Some clung to the heroic cop, refusing the dark truths. Others saw a community that failed, a town that looked away while a child suffered. In the end, more questions than answers, a scar on the town's soul.